today to duly and faithfully carry out our duties to the best of our judgment and ability for the advancement of this district and the benefit of all of our community and fellow citizens. And the Coorong District Council members acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land and waters, Nurrungeri people, whose ancestral lands are on which we meet today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal people to country and pay our respect to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all First Nation people. Thank you, councillors. Item 1 is apologies. I have two apologies, one from Councillor Taylor and the second one from our CEO, Bridget Mather. So we have councillors Bland, Ling and Rountree on Zoom today, and in the chamber we have councillors Yench, Hill, Arthur, Qualman and Simmons. Acknowledgements. Anyone got any acknowledgements they'd like to make before I say something? No one, thank you. So what I would like to just say now is we just received notification this morning that we have been successful as council in receiving $1.471 million to work with, in partnership with Telstra, to build 2 mobile phone towers, one at Narung and one at Colbatch. This is an excellent result. This is from the bushfire, which is where does it say here? Someone will say to me. From the National Bushfire Recovery Fund. I would also add, it's not in our council area, but it may well help us. The Southern Mallee Council will receive $395,000 to upgrade the phone tower or Telstra's tower at Geranium. So that will hopefully help the Khartoum and Netherton area. So that process has got a couple of years to be expended by the look of the reports I've got to me. I'd very much like to thank our staff that have been involved over the last year or two, and particularly I think the study that we did around our black spots as internally in council about 18 months ago has helped this process a lot. So thank our staff very much for the work they've done. I obviously thank our Federal Member of Parliament, Tony Passon, for being fully in charge of this process, and he points out to me that he's still got 400 mobile black spots in Barker, but I think we've probably now dealt with most of the most obvious ones in our council. So thank you to everyone concerned around that. Next item, what is the next item? Confirmation of minutes, item 2 of the ordinary meeting, including the confidentials on the 18th of January 22. I'll move that way, please. Councillor Yench. Is there a seconder? Councillor Arthur. Any questions that need to be dealt with? There being none, put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? I've lost Councillor Bland on the screen. Yep, thank you. No, she's back. That's carried unanimously. Item 3, adjourned business. I have none. Item 4, minute action list. Councillors, is any questions on the minute action list? Councillor Qualman's the starter.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 233/21, the lagoon fencing supposed to be completed on February the 7th, so commenced. Has that been completed?
Through you, Chair, the fencing has commenced. It has not yet been completed, but it is currently underway.
All right, thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Arthur.
17020 regarding the Hagalong floating theatre, and it's got in here in the scopes that have engaged a consultant to consider feasibility of the project. When did this happen? Because we were only going to get a consultant if we could get grant money to cover it. So is this another one that's just pulled out of the blue or what?
I would think we'll probably need the CEO's advice, will we? Miles, do you want to have a go?
Your Worship, I will have a go. My understanding is a very light look at feasibility. So it's not an in-depth investigation. It's very light to determine some key aspects that allow council then to make informed decisions moving forward. That's my understanding.
So Mitch, well, I haven't got any visual on Councillor Bland, sorry.
come back.
I have now, but councillor Jens is next.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. To add to Councillor Arthur's question, I did ask the CEO some time ago about this, and the indication was that there would be a minimal cost to council of a few $1,000s. It was believed it would not be in the double figures to go through the feasibility study. It did not come through council, though. I know that.
Okay. On questions from the minute action list, councillors.
Just, Mr Mayor, just one other. Where is it? 21421, regarding the progress, Menengi Progress Association and the Save Our Lakes funds. It's been suggested to me by a legal eagle that we should not be getting tied up with that in any way because it has nothing whatsoever to do with council. So I suggest we probably get a little bit of guidance on that.
The CEO's been dealing with this, and that's Liz Miles.
My understanding is the resolution, you can see that it's completed. My understanding is that council won't be involved. We can get that clarified by the CEO, but that is my understanding, is that those funds won't be held by council.
Councillor Bland, yep.
Councillors Hill and myself met with the Progress Association and the CEO. The CEO was, following discussion, the Progress would probably continue to maintain the funds, and how that might look were a discussion now with the Progress. The CEO had some opinions on how that might look, but he had nothing then after that with council.
Am I clear that we at the moment as council do not hold the funds?
Correct.
Councillor Hill.
Through you,
Yep.
Mr Mayor. There is no appetite by the Progress Association to do anything with those funds at this stage, and should we require a formation of another committee in the future if the drought returns or whatever, that will be dealt with at the time. But at the moment, the Progress Association holds the funds on behalf of the community.
Correct.
So I think we're near a resolution of that issue. Okay, any other questions from the minute action list? Okay, I move on. Questions with notice. There is a group there from Councillor Arthur. You wish to add to any of them, councillor?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to ask the first one here. On the 9th of February last year, I sent an email through regarding someone who was interested in taking the unit on. It was answered to me on the 3rd of March, and they were going to get in touch with that person. The unit was ready for tenancy, and now the answer we get here is that in September we looked at doing some work there, and the work hasn't been done. So somewhere along the line, this unit was, when the last tenant went in, had new floor coverings and was done up. So I just think, has anybody been down and had a look on whether this is ready for a tenant, because it's just ridiculous to sit there for 12 months.
Miles?
Through you, Your Worship, this is the reason I asked for Justin to be in the gallery. Now, I don't want to put Justin on the spot here, because Justin essentially has been handling this in concert with other people in council. Justin, would you like to offer a comment?
Come up to one of the speakers, and please, Justin.
Hello, everyone. This unit, it was decided that the bathroom was unsafe and had to be redone, and we thought that the opportunity with it being vacant, it was a good time. So we've gone out and purchased all the fittings and things, and it's coincided with COVID, and found it very difficult to find a builder to undertake the works. So we've engaged a builder, a local builder. He's really struggling to find a tiler. So we want it done taking a long, long time. So if anyone knows of any builders that are looking for some work, away.
Okay.
So just to clarify, Your Worship, in between tenants is a good time to get in and do some, repairs and refurbishment. It was deemed that that was appropriate.
Yeah,
And because my understanding is, these tenants can be very long-term tenants, so take the opportunity, refresh it. As we'd probably do with any other opportunity that would arise.
and yeah, we would like it to be quicker, but as I said, we've appointed a builder. They just can't get trades. So, yeah. Thank you.
Your other questions, councillor? Thank you, Justin.
Yeah, this installation of the Mallee lights, this has been going on since 2016, I think, so hopefully we'll get it done. I query the costing there, which is a trench of about 30 metres across the main, when I showed James that we could do it from about a third originally involved, and a box above ground, so anyhow.
And, sorry, councillor Qualman's got a question around that.
Well, it reads here that originally the structures were designed to operate via solar, but then they were changed. What was the reason for that? Please.
Through you, Chair, I believe that the solar panels that were a curved panel on top of the actual light structure were of old technology. The cost to refurbish them was quite significant, and although technology in the solar game has improved, it was far more advantageous for us to make them mains power and enable us to have a consistent lighting feature at Tintinara.
I think the main reason was the storage, battery storage on them.
Yep.
And because of the danger, because there's a couple of them down at Tinty that people have got there now, but that's it for their own. It was a change. Okay, thank you.
You've got three other questions, any particular
Just
issues?
this last one here. When will the tap and go be up? Because, this bloke I was talking to, he said, everybody knows it's free here at Canalpin Caravan Park. That's why you probably get a lot in here, because it's the way that the things operate now. It's on the grapevine, you call into caravan, you can get a...
You're referring to the showers or the facility or the power?
Showers must have been put on since I saw this gentleman, a couple of others.
So through you, Chair, showers are now working successfully. In March, a report will be coming to council to roll that facility out to the caravan park, provided that it continues to work the way intended to with the showers. So as soon as we are confident that the system is capable of doing what we want it to do, it'll be rolled out as a fee-for-service facility within the caravan park for power.
So at the present moment, there's no honesty box or anyone, you just get the free.
Yep.
That's easy.
Is that all your questions answered?
Sculptor was that was asked by someone else. Policy, well, yep, it's still got a long way to go. There is a couple of points in there that I'd like to make. On page 8, in terms of weed management, there's 3 aspects that service provides. Roadside declared weeds are not council's problem. They are the landowners with the management of the landscape board. And also on part 3 of that, we do the roadside veg spraying to look after our own asset of our bitumen road. So first bit is actually a little bit wrong, because it's not our responsibility for declared weeds or anything on roadside veg.
The council, as you know, that plan's coming, and there have been some discussions around what would be the costs of us spraying every road, which would be enormous. Or how far would you? And we're accepting that the adjoining landowner is responsible. Councillors that are on Zoom, I need you to mute when you're not speaking. I'm sorry, it just gives us too much feedback. Councillor Bland, though.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a question in relation to Councillor Arthur's question in relation to the Mallee lights. I noticed that there are figures there in talking about in-kind contributions and what the overall cost will be. I don't notice a figure there for the contribution of staff time and effort since 2016 and what that cost has been.
So which is it? Just looking at the report, councillor.
Very minimal.
Through you, Chair, part of the contribution council staff is included in that approximate $15,000, but it has been very minimal since I've been at council since May last year.
Minimal in recent times, councillor.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there was a significant amount of time put in it by previous directors, as I know, in the past. So unfortunately, that note should probably make a note to say that it excludes contribution. Thank you.
So I'm just advised that directors' jobs aren't booked to jobs. They're an overhead of the business, councillor. Director's job, director's time.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr Mayor.
Yeah,
Really.
The last one, Mr Mayor.
I'm taking councillor Bland as somewhat happy. Yes, councillor Arthur, your last question is around leases.
The list here, according to my list, there's quite a few others here that the Washpool Estate Residents Association, 2016, Taliban Tennis Club, 2016, Meningi Sailing Club, 2018, Taliban Community Centre, 2017, Meningi Piling Club, 2011, Taliban Progress Association, 2014. I'm not sure what these things are, but this is the list that I received from council some time ago, and we've got Meningi Aero Club lease ran out in 2013.
Right, how about
District Sporting Buddy.
How about we let Justin, our property officer,
And we've
Have a
got
go
Titanara Bowling Club, well, that runs out in 2031. So that is,
longevity will be good for them.
All the rest
Justin,
I
can you
agree with.
respond to the question, please?
Yes, I've got a lot of work to do. As you saw, I've set out a program to get some of them done this year, and hopefully next year we can have them all sorted. The Taliban Football Club one's up at the moment, so hopefully that one will be signed. I do have some good news on the other side of things. I've got a draft lease back finally from DIT for Tanara, Canalp and Hermaduke. So I'll bring that to council next month, which will enable us to do those subleases to to all the groups in Tinty and things like that.
Could I just ask the question of Justin or?
No, you're asking me.
Mate.
Always ask me.
Or to, maybe it's to Miles. We're supposed to advertise, go to public consultation for these. So is it possible to do a bulk advertising for bang, 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 instead of having to do 25 different individual ones, which, it does cost you quite a few dollars to do that. If we could do them in batches of 5 or 6 or something like that, if it's allowable.
Through your worship, that is something we have contemplated. There are costs involved, definitely in drafting the leases, and we're trying to spread those costs across financial years. So we've aimed at, in terms of workload, in terms of cost, doing all of this work over a 2-year period. We've also looked at prioritising them. So in effect, if a lease is expired, the existing conditions are maintained until it is renewed. So there are certain ones that will have a higher priority than others. So if there's one where the conditions are not desirable, then they'll be the first ones that are tackled. We could do advertising in bulk, but I'm querying about the workload that would be required, and Justin probably is best to answer that, the workload that would be required in order to get the lease is ready for, say, a 6 lease, draft lease release. So if you
So
did- so-
there's also having to talk to each group, make sure that the community land management plan is up to date, because if that's not correct, your lease and stuff. I guess we could do it that way. It's probably, and you also have to talk to all these groups and have more of an agreement. And I can certainly look with Miles to see if there's an easier way to do it.
To your worship, could I say that that probably isn't going to reduce the overall timeframe because of exactly what Justin just said. So we have to, we've not got a CLMP, community land management plan. We have to ensure that's done. We have to, as Justin said, talk to the clubs and the lessees. So in fact, if we did it that way, all we're really doing is probably, every in a half-year period, we'd probably release them for public consultation as a bulk. So we're not going to reduce the 2-year period that we're looking at. It still would take that long.
Okay, councillor, has that finished your group of questions?
No.
But it has to be done.
That's as simple as that.
So councillor Lang, I'm presuming we're moving to your question. Is that what you're saying?
No, I have questions in regard to the table that we were offered in response to that last question in regard to leases. I'm even shocked further that some of these leases are out of date by 7 years or more, and there's no real interpretation of the table that we've been offered. I was going to ask, what does the X stand for? Does that mean when these leases expire? Clearly not. Is this when the leases are expected to be renewed? Maybe. We don't know. So an accurate response to the question might have been called for.
So the question asks, what is council doing to bring up to date the leases to organisation and the land under council's control? And a lot of the time that will be Crown land. So Miles, that's an indicative one for the next 12 months on what we think's most urgent and priority. I would imagine that most leases have a rollover provision. They all do. And so while they may have expired in a technical sense, they would be ongoing in a legal sense. Would that be a fair interpretation by me?
Correct. And Your Worship, we're not that I'm excusing that, but we're not alone in this. So I know a number of councils are in this catch-up mode for one reason or another. The X's, and I regret, Councillor Lang, that you're shocked. Indicate when these leases are meant to be processed for renewal.
There's your answer, councillor.
Yeah, not very good.
Okay.
You wish to move on to
I'm happy to move on to yours around community grants.
everyone else's finished in regard to leases?
If you're
Yes.
finished with
Again, I would suggest that the response given isn't highly accurate in the fact that Ozfish actually contacted me in February querying why they haven't been contacted by council. Now, that is totally separate to the response that the CEO has provided.
So which part of Ozfish spoke to you, councillor?
The person who took out the grant application.
Which
Michael
state
Stewart.
which
Michael
state were
Stewart.
they in?
Sorry?
Which state were they in?
I'm not too sure whether no, he's in Adelaide. They were working towards buying this trailer for which the grant was offered for the beach cleanup in March, early March, and no contact had been received from council.
So
I raised
councillor,
the query how many other applicants truly have not been responded to.
yeah, okay, I'm going to ask the acting CEO to respond.
So through you, Chair, it's my understanding that the applicant provided a postal address which was, and correspondence was provided to that postal address to Ozfish, which was interstate.
Okay,
The correspondence was provided to the address that was submitted on the application.
all right,
Perhaps there's been some crossing of wires there, councillor.
thank you.
Councillor Bland around this subject.
It is around this subject, and I think it's the bottom line of the response that I have more concern with. If they haven't received the funds, to which account did it go? Because it says funds were deposited in successful applicants' accounts. Perhaps we should just double check that.
Through your chair, it would have been deposited into the fund that was provided on the application.
Can we see if that has actually not bounced in any form?
And not only not,
Councillor Roundtree.
so I was going to say, not only not bounce, but with the other issues that we've had of money going into the wrong accounts with the netball club, it'd be useful just to double check that it actually made it where it was going to go.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you.
Certainly. Okay,
Mr Mayor.
councillor Hill.
And this is probably the difficulty when we are giving grants out to perhaps groups that aren't necessarily completely local.
Thank you, yes. Yes. And I presume we're going to have another round of community grants. There's still some money in that fund. I imagine it'll be coming out any moment. Okay, I'm going to take that, councillors, as we've completed the questions on notice. Questions without notice, councillors. Councillor Hill.
Mayor, I have been the target of written abuse, bullying and derogatory comments in emails dated the 31st of January 22 by 2 councillors. These emails were circulated to 7 council members and the CEO. Will the Mayor direct that the 2 councillors concerned retract their statements and publicly apologise to me?
So, councillor, I'm aware I've seen some of those emails. So I'll probably have to seek further advice. And in the Act, it's very difficult in relation to emails to know at what point I would speak to. I haven't really got many more powers than speaking to councillors, but I'll take it on board, your concern.
Well, I'm disappointed that there cannot be action taken when I have been nothing but respectful and tried to deal with this through a number of avenues, and this is one of the few recourses that's left to me.
No, thank you for that. One of the greater problems is the amount of, I'll use the word banter, but I don't mean it in a friendly way, that takes place between elected members and sometimes between elected members and the public, which is not exactly truthful sometimes. I'm well aware we're in an election year, but I will follow up on your concern around that action, or those emails.
Well, this banter you refer to calls into question my character and integrity, and I can only take offence to that.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions without notice?
Yes, I
Councillor-
presume I haven't received these emails, so is the email attack against myself with ongoing code of conduct issues? I would like to be filled in with the details of these reports.
Well, councillor, the question doesn't relate to you at this stage, so.
Well, it's interesting that I've been left out. So clearly they do.
Well,
You've sent those emails and you should be taking the appropriate action.
Councillors, I don't think councillors have to email each other fully in relation to things. That would be my point. I'm just going to go to councillor Qualman as the second question.
Mr Mayor, as most councillors are aware, there's been a bit of IT or rating electronic changes to the way council collects its rates, and it was put out in the media about BPay would now be removed from the post office system. Now, through the chair to the corporate manager, could we advise how we're looking at getting the rest of the system up and running and to return to recoup the rates back in the normal way?
Miles, this one?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor Coleman, for the question. Now, it's AusPost. The AusPost option had to be removed from payment options for rates instalment 3 and 4. An email that our CEO sent to council members on 24th of January advised you of that, and advised also that the fix requires AusPost to make some changes to their system, which will be completed in March. It also advised you as well, there's about 400 ratepayers that are affected, mainly in the larger towns. It is really unfortunate that that had to happen, but it wasn't so much that people couldn't pay, it was a problem in terms of then that transaction being verified at our end. The last thing we wanted to have is a dispute with someone who has paid and our system saying they haven't. So we de-risked that situation completely. And unfortunately, the only way you could do that is remove the option for quarter 3 and 4. So moving forward, the first instalment in next FY will be back to business as usual. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you.
Councillor Bland is next.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My hand got missed and I wanted a follow-up question from Councillor Hills. Question without notice, and that is that I understand that you've indicated that you will deal with the issue in some form. I am wondering, given that this is these emails were sent to all bar Councillor Leng, as he's now aware. I'm wondering, how will you deal with it? Will you bring it back to a special meeting, or will you bring it back to the next meeting so that council itself has some resolution on this?
Well, Councillor, with all due respect to everyone, this is the first time it's been raised with me directly. So I'm going to seek some advice around this issue. I'll bring it back as soon as I receive the advice and decide on a course of action. I'd encourage everyone, if there's an issue, to bring it to me.
With
the
respect,
CEO.
Mr Mayor, I have asked you on a couple of occasions, both privately and in meetings,
In previous,
sort of behaviour.
That's right.
And so I didn't feel confident that if I came to you directly with this one, that I would get a hearing.
Councillor Hill's correct. She has come to me before or previous to this, and I felt we'd had a resolution of it. So I'll take it on board again. I move to Councillor Bland, you finished.
Thank you.
Councillor Yench is next.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I too am disappointed in the scenario. I did have a conversation with Councillor Cormann on this approximately a week after the event in the street, and he indicated his dismay to me at that time. And we were awaiting some formal outcome, but that has not arisen. I do have several questions. One is the current vaccination status of, as in risk for council. Do we have staff who are on leave as a result of COVID infection, Mr Mayor?
Mr Mayor, can I just, point of order there, I don't think it's elected members' job. We pay a CEO to run the staff and make the decisions on that. And I don't think the CEO should be telling us what the staff's position is. If they've made a decision that every staff member must be double vaxxed to work, that is a decision of the CEO.
Sorry, point of
not us.
clarification, Mr Mayor. I'm not asking their vaccination status. I'm asking if there are any infection. So it's illness, not your vaccination status, which is your personal choice.
Through your worship, so just quickly reaffirm that we're not advocating mandatory vaccinations.
Yep,
And we've generally, we put in place risk mitigation to ensure that, one, we provide a safe workplace, and two, we provide as best we can continuity of business. They're the two principles for the various types of risk mitigation, including the masks, including splitting shifts, including encouraging working from home where you can. We're not unlike any other business in that COVID has affected us. And the two ways it affects us is not so much the infections, it's the close contacts.
Yes.
So we've had a situation, and look, I think we've actually done really well because it hasn't been large numbers. It's been very small numbers of people who have had family members or other people they've been close to have been positive, and then they've had to go into their own isolation. However, they've not been, a lot of them haven't been sick, so they've still been able to maintain activity from home. It's only when they're sick, then of course, then they would cease any activity from home. So business has been maintained. I won't talk about infection rates, but I will say that our business activities have been maintained, and that's something that we've worked, to ensure our strategies will achieve that. I think we've still got another 3 weeks or so. Obviously going back to school is, I think it's created a little bit more exposure. So I would hope by the middle of March that, fingers crossed, that we're coming out of the worst patch.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, for that response. I also add that as of yesterday, I became aware, due to the Tailem Bend community page, that one of the schools in our area had 8 infections. Council function on the 26th down at Canalpin, and we monitor the situation closely as to whether, because there'll be a significant proportion of people, I presume, from that area, as there are from Tailem Bend who attend that school, we need to minimise risk, and that's all I'm asking.
So, Councillor, in each and every case here, we're following SA Health's advice. We have for the entire process. The next question is?
The next question is the Assets Committee meeting on the 1st of February. It was moved that a section of road in Tailem Bend be looked at for upgrading, which is Trevena Road between Seymour Street and Coldie Road. As many are aware, it is where the Lions Den is, and also the local Tailem Bend kindergarten. I have concerns that because of the peculiar nature of the layout, that the cost of doing one major road and one closed road in there all at the same time is going to be a huge expense. I understand that the council will be looking at this as to how it can do this to the best to the community's advantage, but I believe the priority should be that the kindergarten have a safe, adequate footpath, because even with limited rain, people are getting out of their vehicles into water, and there is a potential flooding problem down that end if we get increased rains. So I know that the relevant staff people will obviously be contacting the kindergarten and having a chat to them, but we do need to be fully aware that safety of children is the priority in that area, and whether that project could be compartmentised in the sense there's a lot of ground to cover and therefore a lot of expense.
So your question, Councillor, is?
And the question is, are we prioritising the footpath access to the kindergarten, or are we doing the road on the other side of the Lions Den as the priority?
So, Councillor, if you read the motion from the Works Committee, it was basically a high-level look at the drainage requirements of that area as the first part, given that Mawson Avenue crosses that drain in a rather unusual way, or it's never probably been fully rebuilt. Well aware that this Trevena Road has 2 legs in that area, and I note that the Lions Den was made into a title about 4 or 5 years ago, and then that would guide anywhere where the footpath would go. At the moment, it's a very wide piece of road reserve in that area. So that was the reason to pursue that, but this is not about a council proposal for budget in the next year. It's simply about what would we do and where would the water go off those streets in any case.
Yes, and sorry, Mr Mayor, to follow up with that, The footpath consultation is out for that area, so therefore that needs to be followed up with
The
that.
the footpath consultation is in this agenda, councillor. So it was there as a proposal, and we'll get to that later in the agenda.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Other questions?
No, that'll do, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My question through you to Matt is, are we aware of the current condition of the lighthouse at Narung, its current asset condition and heritage requirements? And also, are we able to seek funds through other sources to assist in its maintenance? I have had a question from the public on this one.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, I'll take that on notice if I can. I'm not aware of the current status, but it's something we can certainly look at, and funding would be certainly welcome if we could achieve any renewal or upgrade required on that particular asset.
My understanding is it does have heritage status and we should be chasing the funding.
Absolutely, through you, Chair.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else, councillors, on
Thank you,
questions
Mr.
without
Mayor.
notice? Councillor Lang.
Sorry, if I may, through the chair, if I can direct the to the director of IA. I spoke to him last week in regard to the Christmas banners either end of Meningie still being displayed. That was withdrawn because I was told by staff that they were coming down the next day, but that was now 4 days ago. They're still up as of yesterday. I haven't seen them today. They haven't been outside the house. So I was just wondering if that could be followed up.
Certainly.
They are going to be destroyed if they're left up too long.
We do enjoy Christmas, councillor.
Yeah, we've gone past Australia Day now and, and other events. Now we're coming up to Anzac Day. Maybe we've got some other banners to go up.
I think there's a report somewhere around that in the information document, if I can remember reading it, councillor. Any other questions? Without notice, councillors. Okay, I move on. Item 6.1, the Mayor's report. We'll notice, I think, Ashley, we have changed the timeframes for the inclusion, haven't we? That's why the CEOs of mine appear shorter. That's the reason. Councillor Bland.
I have, Mr Mayor. I wonder if you'd give us an overview of your first one on the 20th of January, the reflection of the 21-22 presentation goals of council staff at the council staff meeting. I think it's a great idea and I'd be interested in your comments.
The broadest comment I'd make, councillor, is council staff have an all-in staff get together, for want of a better word, on the Thursday after the council meeting on Tuesday, so that the full context of council's decisions on the Tuesday can be transmitted accurately. I just gave a brief overview of how I thought we were going. The thing that impressed me was probably due to COVID partially, but also just due to the very dispersed nature of our council. I think we probably had 8 to 10 different sites on the screen, I'd call it, in that, which sort of was quite effective. And I particularly knew the tree where the road construction gang were camped under, funnily enough. But I would commend the management and the staff for dealing with everything as an all-in, as in every employee that's available to that at 8 o'clock in the morning on the Thursday. So, yeah. Internal management issue, but the CEO asked me just to come along and take any questions, of which we had very few, I think, from memory. And it was also reassuring to see the staff had, everyone was informed about the changeover to the new Synergy Soft program and the implications of that for payroll in particular, of course, which at this stage appears to have worked so far so good. But as you know, as you change any system, there's always risks.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I note that you've only got January attendances as opposed to coming up to today's meeting. Just wondering if you got an invitation and also attended the recent public dignitary opening of the Motorsport Park drag strip. I saw everyone there bar you.
Because I was not invited, councillor.
Ah,
Shame. Not good.
You may be aware I'm not a great motorsport fan, but nonetheless, it's pleasing to see. I think it's in Southern Press today. I saw the drag strips coming along now. And I think there's some extensions to the caravan park, I understand too, that have been approved. So, yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Council members' reports. We'll start with you, Councillor Bland. Do you want to add anything?
No, I don't think so. We're following the current rule of ending at the end of January. I think that's probably a good idea. Unfortunately, our Australia Day celebration was extremely hot. We had some issues with power and not a lot of shade in our community hall in the park. So, yes, all good. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hill.
No, I've got nothing.
Thank you. Councillor Lang.
nothing further if anyone's got questions.
Any questions? If there isn't any. Okay. Deem that finished. Notice is a motion. I have nil. Notices without motion, councillors. Councillor Arthur.
Mr. Mayor, the motion reads, as council set up a plant and equipment reserve fund.
Has council or will council?
Our council set up a plant and equipment reserve fund. The starting date to be the 1st of July 2021, as recommended by the previous finance officer.
Have you got a copy, councillor? I'll just.
1st of July 2022.
Councillor, I believe I can deem that you formalise it to the next meeting as a motion with notice, please. I think it has some implications and that would be fair for councillors to be fully informed around in terms of that. So I'm going to ask you that you do it at the next meeting as a notice motion,
I will
please.
do that. I just thought while it's fresh in our mind from last week when the finance officer actually recommended.
Council should have enough time to turn its mind to things, and
Okay. I will.
if you could, please, I think that would be appropriate. It's not motion with notice at the next meeting, please. Motions without notice, I'm still on, councillors. Okay, done. Office of the CEO's report, there is nil. Number 9, council policies. There is none this month for review. Number 10, Audit and Risk Committee minutes of the meeting of the 18th of January. Someone move the recommendation, please. Councillor Bland.
I'm happy to move that way, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Roundtree is the seconder. Any discussion around those minutes? Being none, councillor, I'll close.
Closed.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 2, Infrastructure and Assets Committee meeting minutes of the 1st of February. There's a recommendation there that council receives in the minutes of the committee meeting of the 1st of February. Someone move that way. Councillor Qualman, you moving that way? Is there a seconder? I'm going to take Councillor Roundtree, actually. Is there any discussion? Okay, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, it's carried unanimously. Number 3, Coorong Finance Committee, minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of February 2022. Councillors, is there someone will move that way, please? Councillor Qualman. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bland, is your hand up as a seconder?
Yes, my
Yep.
hand is,
You haven't got a question?
no,
No, very good. Any questions? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Item 11, 11.1, Annual Business Plan Second Quarter Review, councillors. There's a recommendation. Council adopts the 2021-22 Annual Business Plan Second Quarter Review. Is there a mover, please? No rush me. Councillor Yench. Is there a seconder? Councillor Rountree. Is there any discussion around the Annual Business Plan Review, which was dealt with by committee from memory?
Just a few within the graph that we've now presented, which I hadn't seen before. I can't remember seeing it, which is very in-depth. There's a few things there that are probably, I thought, were well underway, but they still haven't even been started, or we haven't started on the project. So it'd probably be easier to list through to the CEO of the Director of Infrastructure and Assets and just ask a few questions. Particularly, like say, for example, Karkuma Road, we still haven't designed it. I would have thought there was hopefully money going to be spent this year. Well, this year's not going to be far over. And tender documents are for things that I thought were already underway.
So through you, Chair, the Karkuma
It's
Road
very
project-
in-depth though.
The Karkuma Road project has been designed, it's ready to go to tender. This is the report is backdated somewhat, but at this point in time, the Karkuma Road is designed and ready to go to tender for construction.
Like, for example, the Meningie Skate Park, it says concept design's underway. Sod turning overtaken October 21. Construction expected to commence February 22, subject to development approval being granted. So A, we haven't got development approval, and B, are the plans done?
So just in relation to the skate park, Miles, we want a development approval process.
Yes, we are.
All right, I didn't get that one.
Yes, we are.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you. There's a few others in there. I'll write it.
Take them up with the CEO on her return.
We'll do that.
It's as at the 1st of January.
That report was at the 1st of January, so since then a fair bit's been going on, and as you know, councillor, there's a lot of things to do. We're still wrapping up lots of programs that have been funded in addition to our normal programs and some additional ones, and including that one today. You finished that?
Very in-depth, yeah. Magnificent.
Councillor Hill.
Just something that stood out to me under environment to the, influence state government and other industry body initiatives related to water security across the district, and it says advocacy channelled through council's representation on the state government's Coorong Partnership body. I hope that's not seen as the only channel to advocate through in terms of water in the district. So, because Coorong Partnership is just one government activity in relation to the water in the district. Thank you.
No, thank you, councillor. Yeah, there is many groups to act for the water security of this district. Anything else around that? There is not. Close, councillor. Who moved? Councillor Yench is the one that moved.
Closed.
All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Number 2, Coorong Growth Strategy, updated engagement strategy. Someone moving that way? Councillor Ling is, by the look of it, Councillor Ling and Councillor Bland. Is there any councillors you want to speak to that or not?
Not at this stage.
No, I'm happy.
Thank you, yep. Anyone else? Okay, I'll declare, Councillor Ling, you'll close.
Close.
I'll put the motion as it reads that council receive and note the updated growth strategy engagement strategy process. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Number 3, disposal of council-owned assets, Wellington East. There's a recommendation there, councillors. Can someone move that way, please, if that's the wish? Councillor Hill. And seconded, I need a seconder, Councillor Ling. Any discussion, Councillor Hill? No. Thank you. Anyone else wish to add to it? The recommendation reads that council authorise the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate the sale of lots 2 and 3 Riley Road, lot 1 Kelsey Road and lot 4 Trilby Road, Wellington East, by way of private treaty through a registered real estate agent. And point 2 is it authorises the Mayor and the Chief Executive Officer to execute the relevant documents of sale under council seal. Councillor Qualman.
Mr Mayor, ballpark figure, we've got a rough idea what all this will be worth to council?
Not at this stage, councillor, I don't believe. Hang on, we do. Well, I don't. But
Thank you. So,
Director.
anticipate a question like that. So, unserviced lots, 50 to 60,000, and selling well. So I think now's the time to get them on the market.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, could I just ask the CEO the method of sale? Are we going to auction? Are we going to expression of interest or just a valuation by the land agents?
Okay, through the chair. So we'll initially take advice from the agents as to the best method of sale. At this stage, we're thinking private treaty. Might not need to go to an auction. Might be able to just get the right price for the standard. But we'll talk to the agents. So we're going to get quotes from 3 agents and we'll take their advice on what's going to produce the best result for council and the community.
Councillor Lang's next, and Councillor Bland, I think you're unmuted.
No, that was more like myself, Mr Chair. I would add, the original motion on this was from 2016, which included the sale by auction. Interestingly, the sale was withdrawn because no one at council wanted to renew the contract with the realtor. Can we suggest that a clause be added in this that we maintain the contract with the realtor, whoever's selected, until the properties are sold?
Well, I don't know, councillor. I'm just reading in line with council's policies, and this is in the report, in the Local Government Act, that 3 quotes be obtained from registered real estate agents for the sale by private treaty as part of the agency selection process. So I'd make the assumption that out of that, if there was, I don't know who the previous agent was, but I'm sure they'll be interested in doing it again if they feel so.
But the point being is if they aren't sold by the end of the contract, we need a clause or to revisit to keep the properties on the market instead of withdrawing them as we did.
Well, council, as in the elected members, didn't actively withdraw them from sale, councillor. Obviously,
No.
a decision was made that there was no interest at that point. Whether that came from the previous real estate agent, I do not know.
Mr Mayor, with the new council, don't all previous recommendations cease to exist? They should be bring up again. So
How long have you been a councillor?
So unless there's a valid contract in place, the new council is not obliged to go on with the previous council's position. I know Councillor Lang, you and we've had this discussion but that is my understanding of the position.
That's the Act.
I don't believe it is. In fact, a motion until it's rescinded remains in force.
Read the Act.
So we'll have a further debate about this at another time, I think.
Okay.
Is there anyone else? There is none. Councillor Bill, you
I'll
get
close.
to close.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. I'm taking that as. Number 4 is Council Swims Connected Properties. And just that council receive and note this report, and you'll note that there's continuing work going on in this area. Several anomalies have been uncovered up till now, and some more does. Councillor Kwame, are you indicating you're moving that way, please? Yeah. Is there a seconder? Councillor Yench. Any debate, any discussion? Councillor, start with Councillor Kwame.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Over the time, last year or so, we have discussed this. So the way I read it, Mr Mayor, we're going to charge ourselves, correct?
No, it's not the way I'd read it, councillor. So there's probably two parts to where this may go. One of them is we may have to.
Right.
And in some cases, that would probably be the right and proper thing. There's probably been approximately 20 connection points which are live services onto our 4 swims schemes.
Right.
But as you can see by the example in the map, there's also areas of land that are held by council but are drainage basins in most cases, or some cases, so I haven't seen any more than that map, that would seem a little bit interesting if we were charging ourselves for vacant land. Given that the work that the LGA has been doing or not doing in recent time around swims, and there's the works people themselves have a bit of a seminar online in the next week or two, I think it would be prudent just to wait a bit longer to see where this lands, to be quite honest. As you'd know, particularly in Tail and Bend, there's several allotments we have in streets that are drainage basins in effect. Right, Councillor Yench is second. Next, sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I agree, but I don't believe we should be charging ourselves for this, and this will be proven when we sort this out and work out where they are. The area on the plan that we have in front of us currently is heavily vegetated and is prone to flooding, the whole area, which is why in the 70s, when I think the sewage CWMS was put through the town, there were blocks within reasonable proximity to this area that were low-lying and being built on, but they were also being very extensively raised. So, yeah, the green areas, those areas altogether are under significant tree cover. I don't think they'll be requiring a service.
So, councillor, the issue may become, they may not require it, but we wouldn't want to be in breach of the ESCOSA policies here, but they may be considered that we have to pay the connection fee, and that is the interesting anomaly that's been uncovered in this process, the way I read the report. Councillor Arthur.
It amazes me when you ring up the LGA Act on this, it says council should charge them fees themselves. This instant, we're talking about vacant blocks. Well, if I've got a vacant block and the CWMS runs past, I've got to pay the same as anyone else. I don't see why council should treat themselves any different than anyone else that is serviced by the CWMS. And part of the, if you read the Act, and part of the Act, it also says because it is not just those people who are connected to the CWMS that service these, you know, your public toilets and all that sort of thing. It's all the ratepayers within the area that probably use it. So that's why it's all spread out. This has been, we've talked about this for 3 years, probably at least 3 years, and at least it's got somewhere along the line. And to me, when we've just recently done a search of what land we do own, It shouldn't have really been that big a problem, I wouldn't have thought, is to go through that list again with what's connected.
So councillor, if you read the last part of the report.
Yeah, I did.
Notwithstanding the analysis required to accurately inform council's SWIMS rates modelling, such modelling must comply with council's obligations as a provider of utilities and the requirements of the ESCOSA licensing.
That's it. Yep.
So whatever's happened before is in the past. Let's look at what the current requirements are, and if there are exemptions for, as in the example of that drainage basin there in George Street, that I believe we run as a drainage basin, but there will no doubt be anomalies forever, but we need to tidy up the 111 we have been informed of at this stage. I see councillor Jens through my eyes, yes.
Thank you. Yes, you are correct. There's also another drainage basin in Seymour Street, which probably has one. The reality is, if the blocks have commercial value, yes, they should be paying rates. I totally agree. But where they have no commercial value and are unsaleable, I think common sense needs to prevail.
Well, councillor, unfortunately, SCOSA licensing rules mightn't exactly always have common sense in it.
May not, but we
So we will find out as part of this long-awaited review of this process. Is there any other councillors around this subject? If there is none, Councillor Corman, you moved it, you close.
I'll close, Mr Mayor.
So, item number 4, all those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 5, long-term financial plan community consultation. Councillor Yench,
will move that way, Mr Mayor.
your seconder. Councillor Rountree. Any discussion, councillors? It's been out for community consultation.
Through you, Mayor, I would just add, I think it's actually a really easy to read document, and congratulations to all that put it together.
Thank you. No further discussion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, in closing, I would like to add that I concur with Councillor Rountree. The document is it's top drawer, first rate. It clearly indicates the council is moving in the right direction, and it also clearly indicates previous council was as well, based upon the information all done on a level playing field. So as a consequence, I think it's a very healthy document. I think the council can put a lot of emotive crap behind it and move forward with this document in hand. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Cheers. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously again. Number 6 is budget review number 1. Is there a mover somewhere, please? Councillor Bland. Is there a second to Councillor Rountree again? Any discussion, councillors? While I'm in sort of finance, our finance officer, James Rendell's left, returned to Western Australia, probably due to personal circumstance, but obviously COVID has driven that, and I very much thank him publicly again for the work he's done over about the 9 months he was here in realigning and shining up, and is very active in that sector. So thank you again, James, publicly. Is there anyone else around this budget review? All right, Councillor Bland, you close. I trust that was a yes.
It was consider it closed.
Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Move to item 12.
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Qualman, sorry, yes.
I just wish to make a statement, please, if I may.
Yeah.
My older brother has written a report and he submitted a bit late regarding Lions Club, and he's also the president, and possibly being my brother, I find this a bit closer comfort regarding conflict of
Your
interest.
call, councillor, as you know.
I'll stand.
Well, if you wish to leave the room, it's up to you. So I'll just, before we do that, so in relation to items, I think 1 and 2, in the infrastructure and assets report, we have received yesterday, I think, two letters from the Menengi Progress Association and the Menengi Lions Club, and that's what Councillor Qualman's referring to with his brother being the president. In relation to the second item, the barbecue shelters, a search of the records of council cannot find any plans, unfortunately, around what may have been previously proposed. There was some communications, but there has been no plans. What I would say is, as council has moved to reconcile more the relationship between council section 41 committees, as in our all committees in particular, and council, and record the to and fro from them, I think I'm going to have a discussion with the CEO around how we do a lot better job in keeping records around all of our community facilities, in which quite often our Lions clubs, our Rotary clubs, our sporting clubs and our progress associations have high interest and involvement, thankfully, and we need to be able to more quickly reflect on what may have previously been done. And I've been in council a fairly long time, and it's an area we've never been able to quickly pull back previous correspondence. I'm told it can happen in our content manager process by some of the staff, but I'll have this discussion with the CEO in the near future, because it is distressing to perhaps people who think we've made a decision already and have submitted plans previously that they think that they may not have been considered. Councillor Qualman, if you wish to declare an interest, that's yours, and you can leave the room or stay. I can't offer you an opinion, actually.
I'll leave the room.
Okay. So just for the community's benefit, all the elected members, I think this morning were emailed both of the copy of those letters from the Progress Association of Menengi and the Lions Club.
Mr Mayor, if I may also say.
Councillor Lang, this is a procedural thing, I presume?
I appreciate. It has also gone out. There's been a letter placed by the editor of the Lakelander in the Lakelander release today, canning what the council has done. So it's going to create a lot of public angst.
Councillors, I'd encourage everyone to fully read the report.
I was just going to say.
To fully read the report. And I know what you're saying, but if we fully read the report, it helps what we're about to deliberate on. Councillor Bland.
Mr Mayor, just to take up your point in relation to reports, the report was done by Belinda Crozier and Dean at the time, so that report must exist in the system somewhere there. So while they're, from my understanding of the Lions, had multiple meetings in the park with staff over time, and they have also sent letters gathering that maybe being perceived as the current correspondence around the subjects. Going back, as you've actually put both of these together, the gym equipment, no doubt, is affected by particularly high salt content of our lake and irrigation system, and the same with any shelter that we should put up there. I would also like to make the comment that these are much loved and used, as this is basically our town hall play area, to put it, and we all know that. So we need to keep this, as our director has indicated, in premier condition, to continue to be able to utilise this for our community as well as for passing tourists.
So councillor Bland, I've allowed some sort of structural discussion around this. You want to move on into item 1, or where are you at in the
Well, actually,
debate or lack thereof at this point? And you,
at this point, because you put them together, I'm just following up on the comment that there was no plans, and that is, I guess, to be fair to the community, not the community's fault that there were no plans to be found, or any of the correspondence. There was a lot of plans found somewhere in that system, and I accept that maybe it's just time to go back, have community consultation with maybe limited to those two organisations, at least in relation to the barbecue shelters. And I note that although I tend to agree with Councillor Leng's comment that perhaps wasn't written as well as it could have been, there is still no guarantee that there will be replacement of that exercise equipment that has been an essential part of this community. And I'm happy for you to go back to whichever.
I'm going to go back. Is this about the process, councillor, or are we going to get to the subject?
I was actually going to say I'd like to see a couple of those points separated and not all moved as one recommendation.
Well,
I can receive and note the report, but there needs to be discussion about the rest.
I'll let you move the motion as you wish. Councillor Hill's got the floor, councillors.
To get into the discussion side of things, it needs to be
debate,
moved, doesn't
exactly.
it?
Thank you.
So I would like to move point 1, please, and then have some of those other points discussed before moving them.
So you're, just let me say, so you just want to, at this stage, move that council in relation to Meningie Lions Jubilee Park outdoor equipment, receive and note the report. That's all you want to move at this
That's all I
stage?
want to do at this stage.
Okay. And councillor Yench, I'm going to take it that you're the seconder of that.
Correct.
Right, we'll just deal with that perhaps first, because that's pretty straightforward. Is there anyone else wish to enter that debate?
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a comment?
No, you can enter the debate.
Well, I'm in the debate.
Yeah.
I believe that's the only motion you'll require.
Right. Well,
You've got the report, all the rest of the details, and if those people had taken the time to read the full report there, it does say, you know, we will probably be taking it out, we may be putting it back, we're going to community consultation. It's not what you want and I want, it's what the community wants, and that's all in that report, and it's a great, I reckon it's a
okay,
great.
I'm taking it you're speaking in favour of that.
Yes, I'm speaking in favour of the motion.
Councillor Bland,
A question,
yes.
and that is,
We're receiving a note in the report, councillor. Yep.
sorry,
We're just receiving and noting the report in this motion so far.
yeah, I still have a question in
Yeah.
relation to the report, and that is, it refers to removing basically all of the equipment, although there are only, to my knowledge, 2 locked off. And so why would we be removing all of the equipment when 2 could actually remain while the other 2 are removed, and while we then go to public consultation on where or how that will look?
So the question, I'm going to ask the acting CEO, the director, to respond in this area.
Yep, through you, Chair. The equipment that's currently there is aged. It's reaching the end of its useful life. There's 2 pieces of equipment that are unsafe and being bunted off. The other 2 pieces of equipment are also starting to reach close to the end of the useful life. Part of the renewal process would be to replace all items, potentially with different items or the same. The intent is to go to community consultation and ask the entire community of Meningie what they want in that location, whether it be gym equipment, there might be another fantastic idea, but part of the consultation is to go to the community and ask them what they want in that specific location. There's a whole number of outdoor gym equipment pieces that are available on the market now that are far better than the ones that have been installed. They're made of appropriate materials. They are installed in conditions that are far more exposed to the elements and harsh than Meningie, and they would be far more appropriate for the location that's what's there now. So that's the intent of this report, is to ask the community what they want.
So councillor Bland, your follow on is?
My follow-on questions around that is then, why would there be an intent to remove 2 that are not unsafe at this point in time and leave them for community use for the health and well-being of this community, particularly up until such times as community consultation has happened? I accept that they're aging. I accept that the equipment does need replacing. It's certainly done its work over the period of time. So I do believe that my question is around why we need to remove the 4 pieces. Sorry, there are 5 pieces, and not 2 that are currently considered unsafe.
So councillor, I'm going to take that as you're going to have a second motion that may support removing only the two out of use ones. Because at this stage we're just debating, we're just receiving and noting the report. So I'm going to give you that leverage in a minute if this motion gets dealt with.
I'm happy to either do that, or Councillor Hill may even be happy to include that. I will leave it to her.
We've got 2 other speakers now. Councillor Rowntree's next.
Can I just get clarification, please, Mayor? Councillor Arthur made a point that the recommendation as it sits at the moment is basically to look at the report and to go and get the consultation and do a whole range of things. Why are we changing that? I don't really understand why we're looking at why we're splitting it up, because I think from what I'm hearing everyone saying that the report itself and the work that's to come would solve all those questions anyway.
Well, that's one interpretation, councillor, but I've just taken the motion as the councillor's moved it, and it is effectively breaking up the recommendation, which is fine. So I suspect we'll come back to the balance of the recommendation in a minute. You're not allowed to foreshadow things in this business, but I gather that's where we're headed. I'm going to Councillor Yench.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm happy to second this, obviously, but I do concur totally with Councillor Bland in regards to the consultation previously and with the individuals that did it. Councillor Bland and myself also, I recall, we met with individuals down there from the relevant groups. So there was a lot of consultation. There must be a significant file somewhere with this material in it. So it does need to be found. I'm sorry, but it does exist.
We're talking about the gym equipment, though.
So councillors, we've had a group of people looking for this for some hours, and this information is not available to us today. So as a criticism, I suppose, of council's processes or records, we can take that as an ongoing criticism. It doesn't change that the information we have available today is what we have available today. I'm hearing, so the recommendation is to receive and note the report initially. Is there anyone else wishes to speak to that particular part? There is none.
Mr Mayor, can I just say one?
You're speaking for or against?
We employ professional people to make professional decisions. No, I think it's we make professional decisions and we write professional reports, which has been done here. We have got a recommendation, and I think that I would take the advice of the professional.
Right. Well, you can get to debate that. I think if it's someone who's something else.
Point of order, Mr. Eyre,
Yeah.
but I believe that perhaps Councillor Arthur has already spoken.
Yes, he has, councillor. Councillor Hill will close though, if I can get to that point.
Okay, so the way I read the motion was that we receive the report, we support the removal of the existing equipment, and then we go out for public consultation. So I totally support Councillor Bland's comments that there are 2 pieces of equipment plus these that are still functional and are getting regular use. So...
Sorry, councillor, I'm sorry to stop you sometimes.
Sorry.
But the issue I have is I've taken your motion to be received and note the report.
Yep.
I understand there'll be further motions come out of this, which there can be. Can you just contain yourself to that piece?
To separate out.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, I didn't want there to be a follow-on that all the equipment is removed, I just support the safe one. So therefore, that's why I separated out the first point and I close.
Thank you. Thank you. So it's pretty clear, it's very clear, councillors, that we've moved Councillor Hill, second Councillor Yench, that council receive and note the report. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. I suspect some people want to move another part, and I suspect it'll involve removing of the two pieces of equipment that are damaged and bunted off, but I'm happy to take a motion to such effect.
I'll move that.
Thank you,
Yeah.
councillor Hill. So you'll change, support the removal of the existing, shall we say, damaged
And bundled off.
and bunted off, bunded or
Unsafe.
bunted? Bunted, councillor.
Bunted.
Unserviceable.
Unbunted equipment, and there is two items. The Menengi Jubilee Park, do you, with the rest of what was the first recommendation of the staff, do you support the rest of that being as read?
Yes.
Right. So it would read, move councillor Hill to support the removal of the damaged and bunted off or bunted outdoor gym equipment located at the Menengi Lions Jubilee Park, support a community engagement process to be undertaken to determine the best use of the area, the type of equipment deemed most suitable, and if there are any alternative options the community feel more appropriate for the provision of an outdoor gym. And point 3 is note a report detailing the results of the community engagement process and options for this area, including in the 2022-23 Building and Community Facilities Capital Renewal Program, will be presented at a future meeting. Councillor Bland.
A question?
Question, but I'd like a seconder too, but you go first, sorry.
I have a question.
Yeah.
That is, where it says support a community engagement process, could we please have a bit more detail on what that process might be?
Director.
Through you, Chair, community consultation process, either through Facebook, through the Lakelander, through approaches to community groups. It will incorporate the entire community, and happy to be led on that, but it will be the standard community consultation process that we undertake for all other community consultation processes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the director. It is just that it's sometimes we have different levels of consultation, or it's just that would go. I'm happy to move to second that.
So councillor, I've taken it you've seconded this, but
I have.
your audio was undecipherable early, unfortunately. But I'm taking it you're the seconder of the balance of the process. Is there anyone wishes to speak for or against the motion, councillors? There is none. Councillor Hill, you're close.
Sorry.
Thank you. So councillors, you can see the motion in front of you, but it supports the removal of the damaged equipment, but no more than that, and the balance was as the recommendation was. I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, I've lost picture. If we could have a 5-minute break whilst I try and reinstate Zoom. I've obviously still got connected to Zoom. Are you hearing me?
We can hear you fine, councillor.
I can't see the main screen for some reason or other.
Do you? So certainly being at 4:30, we can have a 5-minute break, councillor.
Thank you.
The other two elected members can see.
Yeah. Councillor Bland, Councillor Roundtree, you can see us okay? Yeah.
Yes, I can see you, and I can see Councillor Lang as well. And here.
Yeah, I'm still connected, but I've lost the main screen. I don't know what's happening.
Right, we've got 5 minutes.
Sounds like a dialect from Dr.
It does.
Exterminate.
Councillors,
Exterminate.
welcome back at 4:40. Always long 5 minutes here. Item 2, Menengi Lions Jubilee Park Barbecue Shelters. There is a recommendation, councillors, and I think some of the issues have been ventilated in the previous debate around a similar area. It would be noted that this is coming out of the building and structural renewal budget in the 21-22 year, if it's to have the timeframes to achieve that in the current environment. And it's been on the list for some time for funding somehow. Just to the acting CEO, can councillors see some of the, can you share any more than what you've got there now in terms of, unfortunately it hasn't worked into some of the other building designs that have a far higher amount of wind protection as an option. Councillor Bland. You'll need to unmute, please.
I have actually seen that design as sent out by our director, and I understand what he's attempting to do there. It still doesn't address some of the issues that will need to be addressed with this design and material. I would see us move forward in a slightly different way.
You've got the floor.
I have, so therefore I would like to move that this specific project in relation to the Menengi Jubilee Park barbecue shelters go to public consultation to the public consultation with both the Lions and the Menengi Progress Association. Menengi Lions, Menengi Progress Association. Therefore, it can be done fairly quickly. So speaking to it, it can be done fairly quickly. That way, it can be done with them in the past. In a similar fashion, it is not the community. You're actually hearing any of this?
Sorry, Councillor Bland, we've got a technical issue that we can't decipher what you're saying from about halfway through that. I've got you as the mover of the motion.
Of which motion?
That the project, this particular project, goes to public consultation with the local Lions and the Progress Association, or do you want to be including them perhaps? Is that be a better way of you wording it?
Including councillors or area councillors at this point in time. I'd now like to speak to the motion.
I'm happy
Yeah.
to second that, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Yench is the seconder.
Thank you. And the reason being is with the limited consultation, both of these groups have been involved in the past. They know the environment and the area really well. And therefore, you know, to follow through on the fact that we've had multiple consultations. And at this point in time, I do believe that it is not the community's fault that unfortunately council cannot find any of the records that are needed to be able to search that, nor do I wish to see council staff spend any more time chasing these records, because it isn't the first time records seem to be not in the place they should be. So I'd like to move that we do that as soon as possible without delaying the project into the next financial year or thereafter. Thank you. I will stop at that point.
Councillor, just your motion doesn't really include the public per se. Do you want to just widen it a fraction? Can you see it on your screen, sorry?
Sorry, support. No, I can. No, I've had to pull up another screen, so it's all right. Support.
So you might just want to widen it out. Public consultation, including the local Lions, Menengi Lions and Menengi Progress Association, perhaps.
Mr. Mayor, I cannot see anything on a screen.
Okay, so I'm going to read what you've moved, what you've moved. This project goes to public consultation, including the local Lions and Menengi Progress Association, including current area councillors. Public consultation including sort of, yeah, that's probably going to be wide enough now, I think.
So
To include the public per se.
well, the public, the Lions, there is a large section of public, and I'm sorry, I still haven't got the context of what's been written there.
Clarification, please, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Jens wants a clarification.
And
I'd like to reread in a minute, thank you.
I believe that if we remove the word public, that limited consultation with the Lions and Menengi and the Progress Association with the area councillors, and that's it. I think that's probably where Councillor Brown wanted to go.
Right, let's just deal with this first. We don't have area councillors in this council, we have ward councillors.
All right, well, the ward councillors,
That sorry, needs to be corrected.
Yep.
The second point I'd make in passing, and not besmirching this, is in the future when you have 7 councillors for the whole area, councillors in the future, we need to think about how they deal with this by effectively excluding councillors from the public consultation. But nonetheless,
Mr Mayor,
sorry, just hang on. So it now reads that council consult with the Menengi Lions Club and the Menengi Progress Association regarding the replacement of the barbecue shelters in Menengi Lions Park. Is that what you want, Councillor Bland?
Mr Mayor, I would be happy to include a minimum of the Lakes Ward councillors. So therefore, if other councillors wish to attend, I do agree that we are in a transition stage and the majority of us try to work across all areas. This was just to ensure that we could get on with it as quickly as possible to assist the director in moving forward.
I'm happy.
And as a minimum, the ward councillors, after Progress Association, please, Delith.
Allows other councillors to attend should they wish.
Yep.
Jake, get rid of the word area, please.
We can't see it.
Mr Mayor, can I make a comment here?
Were you speaking for or against, because it's a live motion now?
Speaking against the motion, for a number of reasons. A, when you're elected as a ward member to represent all the ratepayers within the council area, not just your own ward. This is council money being spent, so every ratepayer in the area should have input into it. I don't believe that it should be restricted to 2 bodies, as much as I respect the Menengi Lions and the Menengi Progress Association. They have nothing to do with the council, and it is council money that's being spent, not theirs. So unless public consultation is included in that motion, I would have to vote against it.
Question, Mr Mayor?
Yeah.
So are we therefore indicating that for all council money, we will go to consultation across all of the district?
Well, councillor, in many things we do.
And many we don't.
So it depends.
Mr Mayor, could I just answer that?
No, you're not going to answer that. I'm going to have a go at answering. One of the issues that's become clearer to me in the last 6 months, since we've moved to what I call a depreciated budget, or a global budget around each category, is that sometimes we as elected members feel like we aren't quite aware of what we're about to do. And perhaps the public aren't either. So in moving to this model of managing a depreciated assets, and we've had this discussion already with the leadership group of council here, we will need to identify earlier projects that are likely to be targeted for each category. And that doesn't matter if that's roads, community buildings, or whatever. We're changing the financial model in the background that drives this. So we're caught in this change over time, and we're trying to achieve something by the 30th of June. I'm Councillor Bland, I suppose I'm going to come back to you. Are you happy with your motion, first and foremost?
Firstly, if I may respond to what you've just said, the intent of the motion at this point in time was to assist in getting this done as soon as possible, given the 30th of June. And I understand we're in a transition stage, but I would also have to say that many of the things been mentioned in relation to the Lions Jubilee Park in general have in fact been brought up over the last 3 years. So I'm very pleased to see this one moving forward, but at the same time, I'm trying to expedite the timeline to assist the infrastructure department with limited consultation.
Okay. I've got a mover and I've got a seconder. Is there anyone else? Councillor Arthur, I think you spoke against it, unless you have a point of order or a question. Is there anyone else wish to speak for or against? Councillor Roundtree.
Can you just read the recommendation or the motion out again? Because I feel a bit confused about what it says.
So it's moved Councillor Bland, seconded Councillor Yench, that Council consult with the Menengi Lions Club and the Menengi Progress Association, and as a minimum, the Lakes Ward councillors regarding the replacement of barbecue shelters at the Menengi Lions Park. That's my understanding of the motion in totality.
Through you, Mayor, instead of lakes councillors, could we just not say interested councillors rather than actually even having lakes in there?
You can say whatever you like, but the mover and seconder have spent a fair bit of time crafting this from a distance, and I know it's difficult, and that basically says all councillors can go along if they want.
Well, actually, he says at a minimum, the lakes councillors, why not just with councillors and leave it at that? I'm not quite sure why the need to specify lakes ward councillors when we're transitioning to a different model.
Well, because at this stage, they still are ward councillors, councillor. I don't think it changes the intent at all, so I'm not asking the mover or seconder to change the intent. Anyone else? Councillor Bland, you'll close.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll speak to it. And there goes the...
And sorry, we've got a distorted voice.
So, Mr. Mayor...
Thankfully, sometimes you sound like a Dalek and sometimes now you're better. And it's either one or the other. So try again, please.
I'll go with the dialect. They had more power.
Dalek, not dialect, yes.
Whatever. So at the end of the day, Mr. Mayor, I would just like to reiterate that this is a very important space for this community overall. It does a lot of business. It does a lot of, because we do not have a community space as yet for meeting or greeting, including things like elderly doing exercise in the park over COVID, trying to keep out of the wind and the rain. I would just like to make the comment that this is an extremely important park space and we need to do it as best we can, and with some public consultation, as limited as it may be at this point, I do believe we can then move. And I close.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, there is the motion around this. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried, but Councillor Arthur voted against that process. All the other councillors, all the other 7, voted for it. No, it's no longer relevant. Is everyone happy that we finished that agenda item, please? I'm considering the rest of it is not required. Number 3, footpath network expansion strategy community consultation. Councillor Qualman.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would like to put a formal motion up, please.
Well, is it part of that recommendation or is it in addition or?
No, it's different. Or
Formal motion.
formal motion.
Formal motion, okay.
Right. Councillor Corman moves that the 2022-2027 footpath, I'll read this slowly, network expansion strategy be referred to the Infrastructure and Assets Committee for further fine-tuning.
Point of clarification, please, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
wouldn't it be better to have this lay on the table until we get another report back? Because it is ultimately council's decision.
Yeah. Ashley, we're required to receive and note the report at some point, or the public submissions. Or we just refer it back to committee to deal with. Okay, I've got a motion. Councillor Corman, I accept your motion. Councillor Yench, council has committees to do the work of the organisation. It will be noted that the audit committee will be moving, it'll come up at the next meeting, to more independent members. At some stage, I don't know what we as councillors will be left to do, sometimes I wonder. But something as simple as which footpaths in which priority and taking note of that, I think is probably, we spend too much time in this chamber as in the full council to deal with. Councillors are more than welcome to come to committee meetings, wherever they are, and to look at whatever, and then debate those motions if they like later. I'm looking for a seconder to his motion, Councillor Qualmers, and that's Councillor Arthur. So at this stage, I've got a live motion that move Councillor Qualmers, second Councillor Arthur, the 2022-27 footpath network expansion strategy be referred to the Infrastructure and Assets Committee for further consideration. Councillor Bland.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I would just like to ask a question of Councillor Corman in that I'm not clear on the intent as to why we're moving it back. Obviously, there is a concern, and if he wouldn't mind perhaps expanding on that.
Well, perhaps, Councillor, there was, 13 or 14 comments there. Some of them would involve additions to what was publicly taken to consultation. Some of them are obviously different. Some, as Councillor Yench has identified earlier, could be affected by a street drainage plan as already moved. Yeah, that seems to me you've got a committee. What do you get it to do it? Go on. Yeah.
That would be fair to say then his concerns are around the inclusion of the public consultation concerns and inclusions that may or may not get up. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councillor. But
thank you.
If you take at Canalpin, for example, Railway Terrace, if you inspect that area, it would almost be impossible to build a footpath there. And it's very unfortunate to be told that the Canalpin Primary School is probably going into recess, as I understand at the moment. So that would affect the requirement for that footpath, and it'd be fair to say the public comment at Canalpin would have been around more aimed at the swimming pool area or Richards Terrace heading towards the bowling club and the hub. So I think that sort of work should be, this motion gets up, can easily be done by committee.
Thank you for the clarification. I assume that area, but needed to be sure.
Councillor Rowntree.
Thank you, Mayor. My speaker's just dropped out, so I think I might have missed a bit of what Councillor Bland was asking, so I may ask the same thing. I just wanted some further clarification from the mover and the seconder, what the aim was of bringing it back to the committee. What was it that they wanted to achieve at that point? Because then we need to bring it back to, obviously, council again. So I just wanted some clarification from them both, or one about what the intent was.
There's a move of the second to one. I add to what I've said.
If I may, Mr Mayor.
Yeah.
The intent was that, I feel that the response from the public was various issues, and I thought that some of the points they raised weren't actually properly encompassed in what we put up in the first place, and some are different suggestions and different problems. And we made more aware of the difficulty existing in some townships around the Coorong Council that need attention. And I just thought we have received this additional information, and it just wants a bit of messaging. and to bring out a better outcome, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
The second is the chairman of the committee.
No, I agree entirely. It's quite interesting when you read these the comments from Wellington East. I just spent a bit of time with some people from Wellington East. 8 of them, none of them, half of them wanted footpaths and half didn't. Half wanted the lawns kept there, half didn't. The road, if it's a footpath, it's got to be on the other side. It can't mess my roads up. So I think it's still got a fair bit to look at from a perspective point of view, and to put all the dollars together, what I suppose the professionals feel that we can actually use on a yearly basis, because that's what we're looking at, to set a target figure of expenditure on footpaths instead of an ad hoc situation, which we've had for many years.
The acting CEO and director will have a say.
Yeah, through you, Chair. The intent of this strategy, and it talks to it in the recommendation, is to endorse a set of principles so we can prioritise how we roll out a footpath program in the future. It also states that the network expansion strategy should be reviewed annually, which enables us to look at the priorities and how they change annually and incorporate that into our annual business plan. The mechanism of this strategy is so that an allocation is made within our long-term financial plan to fund footpaths going forward. It also states, as the last part of the recommendation, that we do a detailed consultation process with Wellington East to understand their needs, where they want footpaths and where they don't. I have experience in similar situations in marina environments where a very small number of people want footpaths and absolutely do not want footpaths in front of their house. They can put them anywhere they like, but don't put them in front of my place. Now, unless we test that in Wellington East with everyone at Wellington East, then we're risking putting footpath and hitting hurdles with regards to putting and discontinuation of footpaths along particular streets. So the intent of the strategy, and we had, I think, 2 workshops regarding this, is to set a set of principles to make informed decisions about where footpaths go and how we roll out a footpath network. We have 50 residential streets in our region that don't have a constructed footpath. 20 streets have been deemed high priority, and this strategy deals with 5 kilometres of those. So we've still got 15 kilometres of high priority streets in our region that aren't funded through this program. So it's a 20-year program to deliver high priority if we fund it based on this strategy. That's all this strategy does, sets priorities and how we make decisions.
Okay, anyone else to enter the debate? Councillor Hill.
So if this keeps bouncing back and forwards between the infrastructure committee and then back to council, is that going to delay any decisions or any being able to budget in the next? Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Councillor Lang.
Thank you. I believe it's past the massage state of the Infrastructure and Assets Committee. We've gone out to public consultation. The public consultation has returned some responses. Interestingly, a lot of those responses clearly were in line with the guidelines provided to the people, so they haven't read those guidelines. Wellington East, I think we've overcome the issue with speed and pedestrian traffic because we've reduced the speed on the likes of George Mason down to 40. So, yeah, more consultation needs to go out, but let's start going forward. Don't delay by going back to the Infrastructure and Assets Committee, who it should have gone to in the first place, in my opinion, before it even came to council. Thank you.
Okay. I'm back to Councillor Qualman and closing, I believe.
I'll close it, Mr Mayor.
Close. So the motion is that the 22-27 footpath network expansion strategy be referred to the Infrastructure and Assets Committee for further consideration. All those in favour? Those against? So the motion is a tie, therefore no decision has been made, councillors. Councillors voting for it were councillors Arthur, Rountree, Simmons and Qualman. Councillors voting against it were councillors Lang, Bland, Hill and Yench. Okay, we need to move on.
Question,
If someone's got an alternative. Number 4, waste transfer stations, changes to cash handling. There's a motion there, a recommendation, councillors. Someone wishes to move that or an alternative? Councillor Rountree,
I'm happy to
You-
move that way, Mayor.
you're moving it as it is.
Yeah.
Councillor Rountree, okay. Is there a seconder? There a seconder? I'll ask one more time, is there a seconder? So that will lapse for want of a seconder. Is there anyone else wishes to move an alternative to the recommendation, councillors? Councillor Hill?
I'm sorry, I got a bit confused with the previous motion. Are we able to receive and note the report still on the previous motion, the previous item about the footpath strategy?
Not
Or
at
is
this
it too
stage,
late?
councillor.
Too late now?
I think so, but given the result of the vote, and if we had a full complement of councillors, and I've seen this before in relation to Rogers Park, the issue may be resolved by representation of the report. And that's in relation to item 3. But now I'm on item 4, waste transfer stations. I'm looking for someone, if anyone, to support the recommendation or a variance of it.
Through you,
Because the
Mayor.
recommendation has lapsed for want of a seconder.
Through you, Mayor, could maybe one of the staff talk to the document? Because I think it's quite clear what they're trying to achieve here is to just move away from cash. If somebody still wants cash to be used, then I suppose there needs to be a good argument for that. I think in light of what some of the issues that have been raised before about handling of cash at these places, and I think Councillor Lang gave an example of that, at a previous meeting of an issue that could arise. I'm not sure why we don't want this to occur, or have I just missed something completely here?
I don't know, councillor, but I'm awaiting for someone else to enter the debate, because I can't.
Question.
The question, councillor Hill, thank you.
What time frame is going to be given? Because there are people that still use cash.
many.
So at this stage, the report's saying that we would phase it out on the 3rd of July, but we'll be analysing in the meantime whether there's an ongoing need. I would suggest that if someone wanted to remove the phase out at this stage, pending a further report in 6 months around the analysis of how much cash was ongoing, and if I have done a promotional photo at the Tail and Bend dump with my own credit card of a transaction. I took part in the drum muster, actually. If that may be an alternative that would be suitable to most councillors, but I can't move it. You're nearly there, councillor Hill, for me, I think.
Councillor Bland.
Mr Mayor, can I just...
No, I've got councillor Bland first. Councillor Bland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is the point. You've hit that correctly. I would be happy to move it with taking out the phasing out of cash at this point and for a review come July.
Is July long enough, councillor?
Should be.
Sorry,
Is July long enough?
well, I'd be happier with 12 months, but we are or perhaps 9 months, perhaps we could go to September.
September.
It is made prior to a new council.
So you can see your motion on the screen. I need you to word it.
I certainly cannot see my motion.
Are you there? Sorry.
Just change July to September 2022.
It's to September.
So could I move a motion?
No, I've got a live one.
Whatever.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the live one.
Do you want to read out what they're suggesting now?
I am taking it this way. Councillor, council support the phasing out of cash transactions at council's waste transfer stations, endorse the implementation program to commence cashless operations on the 1st of September 2022. Point 2, the number of cash transactions will be analysed to determine usage of EPFOS facilities, whether there is an ongoing need for cash transactions beyond September 2022.
And point 3, that a record be kept of concerns voiced by waste
Clients.
transfer stations systems of the concern of not wishing to be able, well, being unable to utilise a cashless system.
Just letting that be worded for you, councillor. So that goes, and it reads at this stage that a record be kept of concerns of waste transfer station customers expressed to staff for consideration. Does that encompass what you'd like to know?
Up until, yes, until such times as the review takes place. Back September. It needs a time frame on that as well.
I would point out to councillors that if item 1 is still in the words it's in, it appears that we'll phase it out regardless.
Well, item 1 says you're fading it out, you're phasing it out.
Yep.
So, you know,
Item one
item
needs
2
to
and
come
3 are irrelevant.
So if councillors, if I was to offer some advice, council's waste trend, we endorse the implementation program to consider instead of commence.
3rd of July.
I'm not the mover though, I'm in a bit of trouble here.
I withdraw my motion, Mr Mayor.
What about if we just, over a 6-month period, analyse the data with regards to cash versus EFTPOS and seek?
I don't think that motion now is as harsh. I see councillor's view.
Mr Mayor, may I suggest?
Yeah, councillor Arthur.
Council investigate the phasing out of cash transactions at waste transfer stations, full stop. The number of cash transactions will be analysed to determine usage of EFTPOS facilities. There's an ongoing need for transactions beyond 2022. The record will be kept of the Express. And I'll be quite honest with this, is quite a talking point this morning down our way, because there's a lot of people don't have cards.
I'm just going to take it that and I'm going to looking at councillor, I've got councillor Roundtree as the mover. How, is that where I'm started from here?
Yes.
So the council, what was not support? You had word councillor, you had the word,
Sorry?
you had a different word to
Yeah, the council
investigate the phasing out of cash transactions.
at council transfer station.
Stations, full stop.
stop.
Full stop.
Yeah. Then point 2, the number of cash transactions to be analysed to determine usage of ESPOT facilities and whether there is
As it,
cash
as
transactions
it
beyond
reads.
September
Yeah.
22.
And the third one's as it reads. So item one at the bottom becomes one at the top, please.
Mr Mayor, could you read it out again?
Yeah, I am, once I've got it.
Thank you.
I think the chamber wants to go with, to be quite honest. And the way I read this, and it's moved Councillor Roundtree, seconded Councillor Bland, Council investigate the phasing out of cash transactions at waste transfer stations. The number of cash transactions will be analysed to determine usage of EPFOS facilities and whether there is an ongoing need for cash transactions beyond September 2022, and a record be kept of concerns of waste transfer station customers expressed consideration until such time as the review takes place in September 2022. The mover and the second are both happy with what that's morphed into, please.
I am, Mayor.
Yes.
Right, I'm going to take Councillor Lang as the next speaker.
Thank you. I think what we've lost there is the commencement date for the cashless operation. I think we need to have a date for the start of, so we can start telling our community that cashless facilities are going to be available, and then we assess up to, what was the wording, until the end of the year or whatever.
So Councillor, I think it's in the report. At present, as I understand it, all 4 of our waste transfer stations, cashless is working now.
Okay.
That's why I said, I think it was in the e-newsletter and that, we've had that discussion, and I think, Ashley, haven't we, with a photo of some pretty big bloke with his credit card.
So the wording of the recommendation, as it was presented to us, is incorrect then. To
So
say
I've
program.
well, whatever it was, it's now what it is.
Yeah,
I've read it out. Have you got it on your screen?
No.
I'll read it out again before the end of the debate.
Okay.
Anyone else wish to enter the debate? Councillor Qualman.
Mayor, now it's been changed to investigate. I'll support this, but I had concerns because people do still use cash, and you'd be surprised. And plus, people are not real happy about reduced hours of the transfer station, Mr Mayor, as well. So I wouldn't think this is a good popular move, but going down this way is probably more suited. So I will support the motion.
Okay. Anyone else for or against? Councillor Yench.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I concur with Councillor Cormann. Yes, a number of people in this community have it's very difficult for them with cards. They do mind up and see if we're working. So yes, I will support this motion. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Motion you will be voting on, councillors. It's moved Councillor Roundtree, seconded Councillor Bland. That, point 1, Council investigate the phasing out of cash transactions at waste transfer stations. Point 2, that the number of cash transactions will be analysed to determine usage of EPFOS facilities and whether there is an ongoing need for cash transactions beyond September 2022. And point 3, that a record be kept of concerns of waste transfer station customers expressed to staff for consideration at such time as a review takes place, September 2022. Councillors, I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Move along to petitions. Item 13, which we have none. We have item 14, deputations. We have none. Item 14.1, public question time. To the best of my knowledge, I have no questions lodged. Item 15, information document. Councillors. I'm in the information document.
Just like the,
Councillor Arthur.
yeah, to the acting CEO. regarding their grading program is quite interesting. I thought, does our grading program do what it's supposed to do this time of the year? Because Homestead Road was graded in its entirety in December. And as you know, we've got a section of the road which is, you've got a woman that's not going to take her kids to school on it at the present moment. So, you know, maybe somewhere along the line, our grading system doesn't work as well as we thought it does, because to be graded and, you know, like you're only looking at 5, 6, maybe 7 weeks when it's not passable again.
So, councillor, as you're aware, the directors said today that all that is up for a thorough review in the next few months around the priorities, and I don't know what Homestead Road is, a 4A or a 4B in that area. I do note there's been, I think, some resealing done on the sealed section of that anyway.
You know, it's just not.
It's just off the other end of it, yes. So I would trust that what changes are needed to be made will be made in terms of intensity of grading.
Just one other question from there. The waste treatment plant at Taylor Bend continues to have minor maintenance carried out to optimise its efficiency and reliability. We spent $500,000 on this 2 years ago to upgrade that system so it was more reliable and efficient. What is the problem at the present moment with it?
I'll have to take that on notice.
Sorry, Mr. Take that on notice.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Hill?
Just a question, probably for staff, Mr Mayor. Mosquito trapping program.
Yeah.
Staff aware of any analysis done of any mosquitoes to see what they are carrying when they're trapped? Because as a previous sufferer of Barmah Forest, it isn't a pleasant thing, and I'd just be interested to know what diseases are carried by the mosquitoes in the area.
Oh,
Thank you.
Bob.
Through your worship, so the trapping program is part of the state arbovirus program, and essentially it is aimed at trying to track the key diseases such as Murray Valley encephalitis. So what happens with the mosquitoes is they're sent to laboratories in New South Wales. They determine the species type. They then also are looked at in terms of any virus that is carried as well. So definitely that is a key part of the investigation. Then all of that information is looked at by SA Health, and then SA Health will respond if there are any indications of particular virus showing up. And the other part of that too is the Sentinel chicken program. So you've got Sentinel chickens in stations, in a few stations throughout along the Murray and out towards Port Adelaide Way. So those chickens are bled on a regular basis and they're examined for virus as well.
anyone else? Anything from the information document? Councillor Bland? Unmute, please.
Just a follow-up question on the Sentinel chickens. There used to be a station in Meningie. Is there still one here, or has that ceased?
Through the chair, that is still just outside Meningie at the former vets property.
Harry.
Yep. Thank you. Just missed that bit. Thank you.
Anything else, councillors? Okay, I move on to item 16, councillors. So for those watching the live stream, please be advised the meeting is about to move into confidence and the live stream will stop. For those who wish to view the end of the meeting, the video will be available on YouTube after today's meeting.
Mr Mayor, I must apologise, but I have to leave.